Welcome to Sinkowitz, your home for election integrity. Watch host Linda Sinkowitz cut through the spin to tell it like it is, leading with facts to keep you informed, empowered, and armed with the truth. Here's Linda.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sinkowitz. My name's Linda Sinkowitz, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. Now, this week, our rundown, we are going to be having a guest. Then after the guest, we have 5 states that we're going to be talking about. Then we're going to go to election and voting terms. Then the trivia question. Then we'll have national news. Then we're going to go to our vote notes. And then at the end, we're going to have my final thoughts. Unscripted, of course. All right, let's get right into it with Steve Stern. Hi, Steve.
Glad to be on your show today, and where so many things are happening. I know you're reporting them. I don't know if we can report all the stuff that's going on. But as you know, we have our election security call, which we just had. And it was a terrific call with a lot of great people. We can go over some of them, but let you ask a couple of questions first, because, I get on many shows, and to be honest with you, this is the only show I'm doing this week because I'm getting ready for a back operation. So we're basically just doing one show. You ask me, and anytime you ask me anything, I always do it. I think I did one of your first shows, and you come on our call all the time and give everybody the updated notice. So let's start with a couple of questions from you, and then we'll get right into it, what we're doing on our election security call.
Well, first, everybody should know who Steve Stern is. Now, you are the COO of the flagship store. So we're going to end up having your website up there, because if anybody wants to purchase any patriotic items as far as shirts, your website is the place to go for that. And you are also involved nationally with elections. As you said, you have the calls that you have out there that literally millions of people end up watching. And what I want to ask you, what do you think is the most important race 2025?
Well, I would say the New Jersey race for governor. That seems to be neck and neck, and that's very important, because if we can turn New Jersey, which is a blue state, that's going to be very important. Virginia, is a tough race to do it. Unfortunately, maybe we need a better candidate there. But I think in New Jersey, we've got a great race. We're always worried about the mail-in ballots. We've been working with Peter Tickton and also Dr. Corsi, who come on our show regularly. And just to let everybody know, President Trump's close to giving an executive order that's going to be one-day voting, no illegals voting, no mail-in ballots, no machines. Everything will be paper ballots, and on and on. Now, a lot of people say, well, how do I know this is happening? Well, I've worked with Peter Tickton, General Flynn, and Dr. Corsi and John Goodman on this thing for the last 6 weeks. And as you heard President Trump the other day say, hey, we're not going to have mail-in ballots. Now, a lot of people say, well, how are people going to vote? Well, there'll be a way for people who are, invalids or who are in nursing homes to vote, but it's not going to be mail-in ballots. I'm not sure what they have for that yet, but you may have more insight on that. So during our last event that we had, and a lot of people ask, well, how did all this happen? So behind me, you could see President Trump there with me up in Mar-a-Lago, and also at the stadium here. And I'm the vice chair of Broward County Republican Party. And one of the things I want to tell you about why Broward County is so important, it's the only blue county in Florida. And we're doing everything that we can. I work on fundraisers so we can raise money. And what we did, we had a meeting last Tuesday night, actually Monday night. And what we did was we told everybody what we're doing. We are sending out 400,000 emails, text, social media to all the people who have a Democrat and a Republican in the House. So we're trying to turn the Democrats and the independents to Republican. Nobody's ever done that in Broward County. And on our last fundraiser, which we had Byron Donalds come down to speak, John Fredericks, a few other people at the racetrack here. One of the nice things was I had never met Byron Donalds, and I did a speech right before Byron did. And he was sitting next to my table, when I got up, he actually looked in my eye and listened to everything that I said. And I told him that I was in business 71 years, married, going to be 60 years. He got up and he addressed me right away. And he says, boy, when I'm married 60 years, I don't know what's going to happen. But boy, Broward County, when I first came here, we had about 8 people. Now we have 450 people in this room today. And it's amazing what can be done by people who work hard to do this. So even though I do a national campaign, we also do the local campaign. And I can tell you that about 3% more Republicans over the last year are registered and turned from Democrats. And that's exciting. And that's a national thing. So Seth Kessler was on our election and security call last time, and he reports every state and what's happening in the state as far as turning more Republicans from Democrats and independents. And that's happening almost in every state. So that's exciting news, because as the Democratic Party gets more to the left, we are picking up many, many people who are leaving and understand that the Democratic Party is terrible. That's extremely important, because the more votes we get and the better our election security is, the better it's going to be. So we've worked on this for 3 years, and it's all started with that picture with myself right back there with President Trump and myself at Mar-a-Lago. And actually, if you could put a full screen on, it's actually to the right side here. To the right side over here is a picture of myself and President Trump up in Mar-a-Lago. And that's where everything started. We had gone up there because he endorsed precinct strategy, and what precinct strategy and how that's tied into election security. You can't have good election security unless you have precinct strategy. Why? Because precinct strategy is the Republican Party. And the more people that get involved locally, the easier it's going to be for your county to have election integrity, because the more poll watchers you get, and we need poll watchers, and that's how we really won the last election. So if you want to become a poll watcher for the 25 election, go to protectthevote.com and the 26 election, and you can sign up as a poll watcher and poll worker. And why that was important was because as we were doing our election security calls, and as we were doing our stuff nationally, we got 40,000 poll watchers and poll watchers for the last election. And how do I know that? Because the Republican Party, who didn't cooperate with us much, but I guess today we have a different story. We finally got, after 5 years, the head of the election security call people for the Republican Party, which is very important. And it's a girl who actually worked in Florida, and now she's one of the heads, and that's very important. So during our last election security call, we made it for New Jersey for this election, and we're hoping that we win. And the reason I did it was because Steve Bannon asked me to do New Jersey because this election was coming up. So we had some important people on there. We had 2 of the heads of the election integrity operation in New Jersey. And they both did a terrific job in letting everybody know. It was Mark Demo and Lynn Lippencourt, who are co-founders of the Citizens for New Jersey Election Integrity. Then we had Dr. Mike Schwartz on, who's an author and a host of the Mike Schwartz Show. And why it's important? Because he's in New Jersey. So he reported a lot of stuff that's going on. And very important, how do we stream 5, 6, 7 million people onto our election security call? Well, when we started, we were doing this on Zoom, which we still do, but then we brought in a whole team, thanks to Steve Bannon, who about 1.5 years ago, he put me live on Getter and on the War Room, and we got 60,000 people to watch. Then we opened up our Stern American Rumble. So if anybody wants to see our last election security call, go to Stern, that's STERN, American Rumble. Let's see if we got one of those. There you go. Stern American Rumble. You know me, I have my sign. So if you go to Stern American Rumble, everything is up there, and it's very important because that's where people are able to see all this information that's coming up. Also, we had Jenny Beth Martin on from the Tea Party, who's doing a bus tour around the United States for stop illegal aliens from voting. Now, they're not supposed to vote in national elections, and they're probably not supposed to vote in state elections, but in national elections, it's a law. And, you know, the Democrats don't follow the law. So, and people ask, well, how did they get, and you work on this, so you know, they registered through a driver's license, check off a little box where they lie and said, I'm a citizen, et cetera, et cetera. So all this comes out in our election security calls. And the importance is to bring new people on all the time and talk about it. We do have a lot of the same people on because the bad news is that and you know this, we only have about 100 people that are experts on election security today. And, we try to find new people all the time. Very difficult because not everybody wants to work like you do and like I do and like Cleta Mitchell and Joe Von Pulitzer and all the top people that are doing this and bringing the information up to us. So it's very important. So in our limited time that we have today on the show, give me a couple of questions. I'll be glad to answer and give you as much information as I can that I know. Before I go in this back operation, that's going to give me a couple of weeks vacation.
Well, Steve, when you were talking to me, you already gave us so much information. And one of the other things I found, I was at a meeting last evening, and some of the candidates that have been out knocking on doors have said that there's a lot of Democrats in Connecticut that are going to be voting Republican. So even if they don't switch parties at this time, they are making their decisions to go and vote Republican, which I think is great.
Well,
but
it's
you're
important.
Right.
But are the machines going to turn that vote into Democrat? You know what I mean? You've been working on that in Connecticut for a long time. So 100%, and the mail-in ballots. So no matter who says they're going to vote, how are we going to, change that? And you're in New England, and I work a lot with Massachusetts and with especially Rhode Island. Raj Diajami, who works with me on the show, has been up in Rhode Island for over a month with a candidate that may run for Congress there. And he has been going door to door. They've been going to, but they've done it a little bit differently. They've gone to the heads of the medical field. They've gone to the heads of the transportation. They've gone ahead of the workers. And they're finding out, just like you said, a lot of people are going to vote Republican for the first time because they see how bad, our country is going, especially in New York City. And the bad part is we need better candidates to run. A lot of candidates don't want to run because they don't want their family subjected to all the junk that goes on in these elections. And, a lot of people don't even know what's in their past, or the Democrats put stuff up on their past that's not true. And then you got to go fight it. You know what I'm saying? And this is a terrible. So I know
we've had a lot of not so nice things said about us that aren't true, but basically what we do is we just ignore it because the truth will come out. But right now, I mean, Republicans do have momentum in getting out there and getting the information. But the big thing, as you said, is knocking on the doors like Raj is doing and helping out. You really need to get to the people and also to the churches, all the churches, because I mean, there's a lot of people out there that don't end up talking to candidates. And if you can get your church in your area to actually put on a forum, you're not saying that you only want to be the one to speak. Have them have a couple of the candidates, ask questions. That's what we need to do, is have a lot more interaction in public with the opposition.
So that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing in Broward County. We have Haitian people running, and they got the Haitian community together. We have clubs as well as if you're an executive committee member, which I am. We also have clubs around it. We just on Monday when we had our meeting, we opened up an Argentinian club. We're opening up a Romanian club. So we are hitting all the minorities, Venezuelans, Cubans, every minority that we can get, because they've been neglected in the past. You know what I mean? And the Republicans are known for that. We have a Black Republican club, never had that before. So we're going after everybody. And that's what you have to do in every state. Do not leave those people out, because if you leave those people who are going to vote for you, and the churches, yes, you've got to speak. A candidate must speak at every church, because the pastors are the ones that are telling the people now, vote Republican, because you see what the Democrats, they have nothing to talk about, the Democrats. I mean, it's ridiculous how they can even win it anywhere except in so left-leaning places like New York City and other areas. But even in New York City, we're getting some of the Republicans to run and some good candidates, and they're doing very well. So we'll have to see what happens.
Which is fantastic. So Steve, we're going to need to wrap it up right now. So do you just want to give us a closing remark that you would like to say today?
So I'd like to say, go out and get Dan Schultz's book, Precinct Strategy, because that's the way you get started, or go to www.precinctstrategy.com. I'm glad to answer any question or tell you how to get on a thing if you send me an email at stern1054@gmail.com. or go to the flagshirt.com. Like I said, we've been in business 71 years. You don't find too many people that are working like I am at this age, but we got to save the country. We have grandchildren. I'm going out tonight with one of my grandkids, and the young people that Charlie Kirk and we
That's
really
wonderful.
I want to end with one thing. Tina Peters, I want everybody who's listening to call the governor to try to get her off. And at another time, most people, if you look her up, you'll find out a 70-year-old lady in jail for helping the Republicans in Colorado, and they nailed her. 9 years, most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. We've had over 200,000 people call the governor, Governor Jared Polis, 303-866-2471. Every show is dedicated to Tina Peters. So thank you very much for having me on, Linda. It's always a pleasure to come on, and want to
Thank you, Steve. You're wonderful, and good luck with your operation. Thank you so much. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Fight voter fraud can't fight alone. As a 501c4 nonpartisan nonprofit, we rely on your generous donations to move our mission forward. If you believe in election integrity, clean voter rolls, and one vote for one legal voter, we would greatly appreciate your support.
Hi, and welcome back to Sinkwits. That was Steve Stern, our guest. And again, he is absolutely phenomenal. The man has so much energy and all the stuff that he does. So now we're going to go to one of our first states. Our first state that we're going to talk about today is California. This is from Fox News on October 22nd. California Republicans launch voter ID ballot push, and they need 875,000 signatures by the deadline. So Reform California has already collected 300,000 signatures, and there's still 129 days left to reach the ballot threshold. The launching effort to require voters to show ID before casting their ballots. Common sense. Assemblyman Carl DeMaio is raising funds for this initiative through his grassroots organization, Reform California. The campaign again requires 875,000 signatures in order to show up on the ballot for 2026. Obviously, they're going to have to collect more than those because when they go through them to verify, they'll kick out some of them. So they're probably going to end up getting about 1 million signatures to make sure that they have enough. Quote, voter ID is about restoring not only internal controls to improve the process, but restoring public trust and confidence in our democracy. And that's what DeMaio had told NBC Bay Area. Now we're going to go on to the state of Florida. That's where Steve is from, by the way. This is from Spectrum News 13 from October 21st. There's a disconnect between two Florida databases, and it could affect the vote by mail. The disconnect between the two databases could cause big problems for the 2026 elections all across Florida. The driver's licenses. Everyone that gets a new driver's license will get a new random number to better protect their personal information. But when those with new licenses are issued, the information isn't going to the Florida Department of State database, which is used to verify IDs when voting. Really? Quote, if they don't update their voter registration at all, then the data is not bundled up and sent to the Secretary of State and then down to the Supervisor of Elections, unquote. And this is from the Orange County tax collector, Scott Randolph. So when Spectrum News reached out to the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, that's the driver's license, and the Florida Department of State, that's the Secretary of State's office, to see what they're doing to fix the problem, crickets. So there's no answer as to what is going on, when it's going to be fixed, how it's going to be fixed, and no acknowledgement at all. Now we're going to go on to the state of Kansas. Kansas, our source is kakeabc.com. This is from October 22nd, 2025. Kansas Secretary of State urges in-person voting ahead of the general election. That's a man after my own heart. In-person voting. Remember that. Secretary of State Scott Schwab sat down and shared some details for the upcoming election. The state remains a voter ID state, meaning all voters will need a valid ID when you're coming to vote. Makes sense. If you're voting by mail, there will be a 3-day grace period for ballots. However, Schwab said this is the last election in the state to have this period. Starting in 2016 election cycle, all mail-in ballots must be received by 7 p.m. on election day. Schwab encourages voters to do away with mail-in ballots, although unless you, quote, absolutely have to. He added that Kansas does not depend on federal dollars for their state's elections. Well, that's excellent. So I think it's great that he's really pushing people to actually go and vote in person. But the biggest thing right now, before all the major changes are going to be coming about in less than, I don't know how many months, with certain things that are going to go into effect, is that you vote. You vote. You need to vote. You have to vote. If you don't vote, you're not allowed to complain. Okay? So now we're going to go on to Minnesota. Minnesota. This is from Fortune on October 21st, 2025. You're going to love this one. The judge orders Minnesota woman who cast her dead mother's ballot for Trump to write an essay about democracy and voting. A Minnesota woman convicted of filling out her dead mother's mail-in ballot in 2024 in support of Donald Trump was ordered by a judge to write an essay and read a book about voting's importance to democracy. So this was Danielle Christine Miller, age 51, of Nashwauk, a rural area that's about 3 hours from Minneapolis, and she was charged with 3 felonies regarding 2 different absentee ballots with a dead voter, which was flagged. Now, how did she do that? Well, first, Miller said she was drunk, and she signed her mother's name to her absentee ballot, and then signed witnessing her mother's signature. Mind you, it was her own signature that she put in as her mother's, and then signed her own absentee ballot, and she signed her dead mother as a witness. So Minnesota 9th Judicial District Judge, her name is Heidi Chandler, after Miller pled guilty to making or signing a false statement, dismissed the other 2 charges. So Miller's sentence includes up to 5 years of supervised probation, an $885 fine. The judge also ordered some unorthodox conditions. So Miller must read a book about the history of voting in America, which is called Thank You for Voting, The Maddening, Enlightening, Inspiring Truth About Voting in America, unquote. And this is by Erin Geiger, or it's actually Erin Geiger Smith. She also ordered her to write a 10-page essay. Now, this essay, quote, is regarding the importance of voting in a democracy and how election fraud can undermine the voting process, unquote. I wonder if the judge is going to grade it. I mean, what if you don't get up, a C to at least pass? If she gives her a D, does she have to go and redo the essay again? I don't know. I thought that was rather unique. I mean, kudos to that judge. You know, she at least let 2 of the felonies go. Normally, felonies are usually around $5,000 to $10,000 fine. So I guess 885. She's getting off light, but 3 years probation. And I think this woman basically has learned her lesson. I can't believe she was drunk. I mean, and that's the excuse you're using, is that you were drunk. So that's another thing. Don't sign a legal document when you're drunk. Okay. Now we're going to go on to Texas. Texas, this is our source is KERA News, and this is from October 21st, 2025. Texas flags more than 2,700, quote, potential non-citizens on the voter rolls. The Texas Secretary of State, Jane Nelson, has flagged more than 2,700 registered voters as potential non-citizens after comparing the state's voter registration list with the federal immigration data, officials had announced. After checking the 18 million voters through the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services systematic alien verification for entitlements, we know it is the SAVE, SAVE, that's a lot shorter, database. It's a resource that has been made available that is free to the states, no cost. So every state should be running their voter rolls through this. So they found 2,724 were identified and turned over to county election officials. The largest numbers found in Texas' biggest counties, of course, Harris County. Well, there's a big surprise. 362. Dallas County, 277. Bexar County had 201. El Paso County had 165. Now, under Texas code, these individuals have 30 days to prove their citizenship before their registration is canceled. Confirmed non-citizens who have been found to vote illegally will be referred to the Texas Attorney General's office for investigation. And if true, prosecution, because Texas does that. As per usual, you have the normal coalition of voting rights groups that are now on a class action lawsuit against the use of the SAVE database. Really? Come on. You know, one of the things people don't understand about the SAVE database and the Department of Justice acquiring the data from the states is it's basically a snapshot in time. They're not building a database that they're going to keep rolling with everything in there and all your information. They are just trying to make sure people are conforming with the federal laws. So now we're going to go to our election and voting terms. Our word for the week is constituent. I know a lot of us have heard that before, but a constituent, all of us are constituents. If you vote, if you live in a town, you're a constituent. A person who is represented politically by a designated government official or office holder, especially when the official is one that has the person represented, has the opportunity to participate in selecting through voting. So that's what a constituent is. So right now we're also going to go to our trivia question before we go to a quick break. Our trivia question for the week. The Election Assistance Commission, the EAC, is a bipartisan, independent commission that, among other important duties, develops the guidance for compliance with election laws and acts as a national clearinghouse for information about election administration. What act of Congress created the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission? We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Fight Voter Fraud doesn't just advocate, we do the work. We dug into the data, and we're giving it to you for free. Just log on to fightvoterfraud.org to request what we've uncovered about double-registered double voters in your neighborhood. Catch all your favorite episodes of Sinkowitz streaming on demand on YouTube, Rumble, and OBBM Network TV. Like, share, comment, subscribe.
Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. Now, before we left for break, I gave you our trivia question. Our trivia question, again, was the Election Assistance Commission, that's the EAC, is a bipartisan independent commission that, among other important duties, develops guidance for compliance with election laws and acts as a national clearinghouse for information about election administration. What act of Congress created the EAC? And as many of you know out there, the HAVA, Help America Vote Act. So good job. Good job on getting that one. All right, so now we're going to go on to our national news. National news, this is from NPR, October 21st, 2025. Voting rights groups challenge proof of citizenship laws, calling them, quote, discriminatory and unfair, unquote. So several Indiana voting rights groups are, of course, suing the state over laws they say only targets naturalized citizens. Recent laws, which is the HEA 1264-2024 and HEA 1680-2025, mandate that the Hoosiers who had temporary credentials with the Indiana Bureau of Motor Vehicles, oh my God, they have to prove their citizenship. How terrible. Or else they'll have their voter registration deleted. The lawsuit says they violate federal legislation because the BMV's temporary credentials used in the cross-check are only issued to non-citizens lawfully in the U.S., and advocates say the data is rarely updated and that the timeline to have the proof is unreasonably short. 30 days. So you're complaining because there's a system in place that somebody isn't updating to show proof of ID. Oh my goodness. Okay. Melissa Borgia is a co-founder of the Hoosier Asian American Power, which is one of the groups in the lawsuit, says, quote, discriminatory and unfair, unquote. She also went on to say providing documents to prove citizenship can be difficult. Here you go. We have the whole box for you on this one. Jeez. You can always tell depending upon where I get the stories. And like I said, when I do the stories, I am trying to have both sides with different stories in there. So now we're going to go on to vote notes. And as many of you know, vote notes means that there is a lengthy story behind this, and we provide you with the link so you can read the whole story. Because if I read it, it would take probably 10 minutes of me reading it here. So this one is about Wisconsin, and Wisconsin officials appeal judge's order on checking citizenship. Okay. So, what you want to do, and this is from WAUSA Pilot and Review, and it's from October 21st, 2025. So, it's crazy. I mean, as per usual, the Wisconsin Election Commission doesn't want to comply with the court's order to comply with the citizenship verification. How many of these people don't get it? If you're not a citizen, you can't vote in US elections. You shouldn't vote in US elections. Honestly, you go try and vote in France as a US citizen, or England, or even in Africa. I mean, the United States is way down the list, according to Gary Myers in the Myers report that we had on a couple of months ago. It showed all the different countries and how they really care about election. Our stuff is so far down the tube, it is unbelievable. So everybody is busy whining and complaining about a number of different things. So I guess right now I've actually gotten into my final thoughts, just thinking about that. And that's our last segment of the show. Like I said, I see it so much where think about all the dollars and the money and the taxpayer money that is being wasted on all these lawsuits. I mean, we know that Mark Elias, he'll hop on anything to cost the taxpayer money to not have just US citizens vote. I mean, there's a number of organizations out there. I mean, they call themselves election integrity. You really have to do your research on it. Or voting rights. That's another, red flag whenever they say for the voting rights. You're a US citizen. You're over 18 years of age. You can legally vote. It's that simple. Why do we want to have people who, as you can see in a lot of the protests, don't even like our country? You see it on the news every day. Chicago, Portland, New York City. These aren't Americans who care about America. Because if you did, you'd be waving the American flag. You wouldn't be waving the flags of other countries because you're protecting the, what do they call it? The undocumented. Undocument my tush. You are illegal. You're illegal. You came across our border, our United States border, illegally. We have had a process in place for well over 100 years on how to get into the United States legally, how to become a U.S. citizen. So when you have these mayors complaining because someone was referred to as what? An illegal alien. He needs to go look it up in the dictionary. Quite honestly, this has gotten really out of hand. If you want to be out there protesting, having U.S. citizens only voting, why don't you just take a trip somewhere? Become a citizen somewhere else? Because this is the United States of America, where every single person who is a U.S. citizen over 18 years old and registered to vote, your vote counts. And we don't need it deleted by the illegals. As you can see, I am not politically correct. Never have been, never will be, sometimes much to the chagrin of my parents. But these are things that people really have to think about. And you think about it when you go and vote. Think about the hundreds of thousands of our soldiers through the years that have died so we can go in and vote. Notice I said go in. I didn't say fill out an absentee ballot. Go in and vote. And I think one of the things that I like the most after I vote is slapping that sticker saying, I voted over my heart. And I'm proud to walk into stores and anywhere else on that day. I've had people say, oh, I didn't realize I have to vote today. So you can be your own personal billboard on election day. Wear the sticker. Be proud that you voted. You don't have to tell people how you voted. Again, this is our country. You can keep your vote on who you voted for silent if you want to. And if you're proud of it, you can blare it out loud and scream it to the world on who you voted for. But go and vote. That's one of our important rights that we have. Again, as you can see, I have no opinions on things. All right, so we're going to wrap up right now. I want to thank people for watching Cinkowitz. Our whole thing for Cinkowitz is that we want to educate the public on election integrity. If you have any ideas or thoughts or of other stories that you'd like to have us talk about, feel free to email us at info@fightvoterfraud.org. We'd really appreciate your feedback as well. And if you like our program or love our program or, share and like. We're on OBBM Network TV, as well as other social media platforms. So I want to thank everyone again for watching Cinkowitz, and we'll see you next week.